It's been 2 years since my last video on here and 4 years since my A Day of a Life as a GP trainee vlog came out on this channel, which now has 70,000 views, which I find insane. I know a few of you might be wondering, what am I up to now? Did I ever get to the end of my GP training? Am I still doing night shifts? Am I still in London? There's also a comment with just a very endearing "come back, please," in all caps. The short answer is yes, I am a fully qualified GP, still living in London, but things haven't really worked out how I'd imagined. So let's take ourselves back in time. Back when I was in medical school, I was drawn towards the GP pathway because of the autonomy, the flexibility, the continuity of care, and the variety of different types of patients you'd see. I imagined myself having regular work, and of course it would be challenging, as with anything in medicine, but I thought the work would be sustainable and fulfilling. Whilst I was training to be a GP, there were several things that I noticed that I found quite difficult to grapple with. I think the first thing is that 10-minute appointments is definitely not enough time. Not enough time for myself as a clinician, but also not enough time for my patients to be fully listened to. Patients were and continue to struggle to access care, whether it's through their GP, through A&E, or through referrals into secondary care. And I myself, as a clinician, found it quite hard to get them referred and seen within a decent time frame. Colleagues were burning out all around me, whether they were junior colleagues or more senior colleagues. And also, year on year, there continued to be real terms pay cuts. This means year on year that salaries were not keeping up with inflation, and this has really real terms effects on my colleagues, especially living in such an expensive city as London, struggling to pay for their childcare or pay for their rent. And I think it's safe to say that in summary, what I saw was a situation where patients, they were not getting the level of care that they needed. So following GP training, what were my options? So broadly in the UK, there are 3 different options you can go into after you fully qualify as a GP. Now, this could be a whole video on its own. If you're interested, leave a comment down below and I'm more than happy to go into this in a bit more detail. But the broad 3 categories are number 1, salaried GP, number 2, GP partner, and number 3, locum GP. So number 1, salaried GP. This is when you are a direct employee of a GP practice, and this means that you have all the perks of regular employment, so steady pay, paid time off, study leave, and another benefit is that you are part of a team, so this means that you work with more or less the same people and you look after a same cohort of patients. What I noticed with my salaried GP colleagues was that they were often asked to do a lot more than what was on paper, and there wasn't really clear progression in a lot of these roles. Number 2 is GP partner. So as a GP partner, you're essentially running the business with other GP partners who can be clinicians or non-clinicians. With this, you have a lot more autonomy and earning potential. But as with running your own business, it comes with a lot more responsibility and financial risk. So number 3 is being a locum GP, and this is essentially when you're self-employed as a GP. With self-employment comes flexibility, so you get to choose exactly where and the hours you want to work, and it's often better paid per session. The downside with being a locum GP is that there are no guaranteed hours and there's no paid annual leave and sick leave and so on. Before I come to what path I decided to take when I fully qualified as a GP, I want to just share some facts to paint the picture of the context of general practice in the UK when I was entering the workforce. Lots had happened during my medical training and during my GP training. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that there were multiple rounds of junior doctors' strikes, and actually whilst I filmed this video in July 2025, another round of junior doctors' strikes has just been announced. And oftentimes these strikes, they didn't really move the needle much. There wasn't much reaction from the government, and I found that quite demoralizing in some ways. The state of general practice in the UK is quite bleak. I don't think we should shy away from saying that. GPs are stressed and stretched. And I'm just going to read out some stats here on my iPad just to depict the point. 7 out of 10 NHS family doctors find their job extremely or very stressful, and less than a quarter of UK GPs are satisfied at work. Although there's a rise of fully qualified GPs, the number of full-time equivalent GPs has been steadily dropping, so this means that GPs are choosing to work less than full-time. In the meantime, this means that the number of patients per GP is increasing. There's been this mind-boggling paradox of GPs not being able to find work, whilst the demand for patient care continues to increase. And this primarily is because of lack of funding to employ GPs. In other words, GPs are out of jobs, whilst patients are really struggling to get to see a GP. And all of this is affecting and trickling down to GP trainees. So amongst GP trainees, 3/4 are experiencing burnout and stress, and under 10% intend to work as a full-time GP. And anecdotally, a lot of my colleagues of different seniority, they have decided to leave the UK to practice medicine elsewhere, so places like Canada, the US, New Zealand, Australia, or alternatively, they've decided to leave medicine completely and stop practicing. Not exactly the brightest picture to start life as a GP. Although at the start of my GP training, I was very open to becoming a salaried GP. When I was finishing my training, I started asking myself, what do I really want for my career? I've previously made a video on this topic-ish before. It's more about choosing your medical specialty, but I go through different frameworks and different questions to ask yourself when you're stuck in a sort of career or life rut. And I found myself watching that video again, so if you're interested, I will link it somewhere down below. I knew the following factors were really important to me. So number 1, autonomy and flexibility. Number 2, stability and progression, especially with the rising costs of living in such an expensive city as London, as I mentioned before. Number 3, fulfillment and challenge, but also some clear boundaries to my work. I've already spent 11 years training to be a doctor with numerous night shifts, weekends, long days, and I think it's fair to say that at this point in my career, I want my weekends to be protected so that I can go to my friends' weddings, see my family members, and just live life a little. And last but not least is variety. As much as I enjoy the one-to-one clinical encounters with patients, I was craving sort of deeper, slower thinking about problems on a bigger scale, and having more time than just a 10-minute appointment to do some deeper problem solving. I soon realized that the traditional salaried GP path wasn't going to fulfill all these different things that I wanted from my career. This is when I started thinking about a portfolio GP route, which means balancing lots of different roles rather than sticking to just one single clinical job. A portfolio GP oftentimes has a mix of clinical and non-clinical work, so this ensures variety within their work. For me, this felt like a really great way to continue working clinically, whilst also using some of my transferable skills from the clinical world into non-clinical roles and developing skills in a different way. It just so happened that whilst I was approaching the end of my GP training, a connection reached out to me on LinkedIn about an exciting opportunity to join a health tech company as a medical specialist. I was lucky enough to get the job, so when I finished my GP training, I worked 3 days at the health tech company and then 2 days working clinically as a Locum GP. I really loved the variety. It allowed me to use my clinical knowledge on a one-to-one patient-doctor relationship on my clinical days, whilst also using that knowledge to impact change on a wider scale through my health tech job. This setup worked really well, but only probably for about half a year. This is when I realized 2 things. So number 1, it was getting harder and harder to find work as a Locum GP. I was on these Locum job boards, and oftentimes there were about 10 to 15 GPs applying for the same shift, so it was really competitive to get work. Okay, it's just started raining really heavy, but I'm just gonna continue recording the video, so enjoy the white noise. Hopefully it's not too loud. The second thing that I noticed was that my health tech responsibilities were growing, and 3 days a week I didn't feel was sufficient enough to complete everything that I needed to do. I asked my health tech company whether I can increase my days from 3 days to 4 days a week, and luckily they said yes. I now locum as a GP 1 day a week, and luckily enough I managed to find a steady, regular job as a Locum GP, which I think is quite rare and I feel extremely grateful for. And alongside, I do my 4 days a week in my health tech role. Honestly, I am loving this balance. It allows me to scratch both itches. I continue to have clinical contact whilst also using and growing my skills in a different way through the health tech world. I have autonomy and flexibility. I get to work from home a couple days a week. And honestly, I think the most important thing for me is that it feels like a fulfilling and a sustainable career route. That's where I've landed for now. If you're a medic watching this video, I'd love to hear in the comments below. What path did you take after you finish your training? Are you where you imagined yourself to be? If you're a non-medic watching this video, I'd also love to hear your thoughts, especially some thoughts on how the expectations of your career may have differed from the reality. I really hope that I have more time to make more videos this year. It's been a crazy, busy phase of my life, but I'm really feeling a strong desire to share knowledge, and I think my YouTube channel is probably the best medium to do this in. So make sure you stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here and staying till the end. I will see you in the next one. Bye!